The days at sea were of my young age. I'd feel the lap of a wave against the port side, a side that mostly showed the grace of peace. Peace, peace. What did the sea show me? I think it was superb beauty, the shine the waves had, how it twinkled during twilight shine, the subtleness of the wind and foot, or how fast it can turn against you, as I was taken by the sea during my youth. Now I see a sea of memories.
I think it's impossible to not think about poetry as expressive uh, because its form so often relates to the feelings and the emotions within a piece. It is naturally expressive. I think because it is such a dense piece of writing, it becomes quite emotive, and I guess I would equate emotive with expressive. I think a poem often becomes the true voice of a poet.
I think poetry can certainly express feelings, but it can be the feelings of the poet, that the poet is conveying how he or she is feeling. But I think the magic of poetry is the reader can express his or her own emotions along with just their interpretation of the poem. And so in your poetry, your intent may be one thing, but the reader might go off in just a little different direction with it, depending on the situation and the context of the poem.
I visualize my ideas and they come out in poetry. I write down what I see and it turns out to be poetry. I prefer to write poetry. I love writing it. I occasionally read poetry, but I often like just writing it.
I think each of us has a little bit of a poet in ourselves, in that words sing to us in different ways.
They are more apt to have that skill within them from an early age. But even if not, it's something that I think with experience and with exposure, it can be developed definitely. In your poetry, is specific word choice that you are thinking it through and being very deliberate in what you are trying to convey, and you are being specific in your description, and you're effective at conveying a certain tone.
My theme I usually go for is life. Like nature versus self. I wrote a poem about nature. It's called The Ways of Nature. And it was about the struggles between common animals such as squirrels, birds, worms, and then I also tied in humans and what we do to affect them. And I wrote poetry, that particular poem, to show in the animal's point of mind on what we are doing to them.
But when I think about those individuals who are great poets, it may not have been a teacher, but it may have been a series of life events or life experiences that have taught the individual the composition strategy. The words are there, but how they are put together sometimes needs to be mentored. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. Though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn. Through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.